can't describe it. It's like sand, but not sand.
Does it feel like sand?
No.
Do you get a sense of a surface beneath you?
There's a surface beneath me, but I'm not standing. It's just like I'm hovering.
Yeah. So when you look down below you, do you see yourself or do you see the surface?
I just see sand.
What colour?
Like white sand. Golden sand.
How fine and grain is it?
Very fine. And there's like gold. I can see gold flakes in it.
Would you say it's real gold or is it just like a reflection?
No, there's gold in the sand.
Yeah.
But just little bits of gold. It's like sand. I can just see sand dunes and things underneath me.
So before you said you felt like you're hovering, is that still the case?
Yes.
Just see if you can see yourself. What do you look like?
I look like it's like a no. I can't describe it. There's no words to describe it. It's it would be
What is it similar to?
like a translucent kind of a holographic, translucent gold and green and pink and purple. I can see the outlines of my hands, but I can't, they're not solid. There's no, it's just a translucent colour. I have my body, but it's not like it. I can't describe it to you. There's no words in the language.
How many fingers on your hands?
It's 6. And it's like I can feel my wings. I can feel I have wings.
What colour are the wings?
They're beautiful gold.
How large would you say you are compared to you back in the room?
Very large.
How tall would you be, roughly?
I feel as though I would be 4 or 5 times the height.
Yeah.
And black. I can see the hair around me is black.
As in on your head?
Yes.
But it's still, like you said before, translucent, like
yes,
a hologram, yeah.
It's all translucent.
Would you say that you have more masculine or more feminine or?
More feminine. Definitely feminine.
What's your first name?
Don't have a first name.
Do you have a nickname or would it
If I
be?
told you that, you wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
If you had a role, purpose assigned to that name, what would that be?
Kira.
Akira.
Kira of the deserts. Of time.
Are you carrying anything?
No. Just wading my hands through the sand.
What colour are your eyes?
That's a trick question. One is gold, one is blue.
Do they change colour?
Yes.
Is that because you're in that form?
Yes.
Do you ever hold a physical form?
I do sometimes. I don't like to hold a physical form.
Is this desert on Earth?
Yes.
How long have you been there as that being?
Many, many, many years. Many years. Many years. Feels like forever.
Would it be thousands?
Yes.
Would it be hundreds of thousands? Or less?
Tens of thousands of
Yeah.
years. Tens of thousands. 20,000. Roughly in your time.
And as that being, how long would you normally live or exist as?
I come and go. So as this being, I prefer this being. I prefer this form of myself. But when I do have to trade in my wings and stand as a human, then I do so unwillingly for a year, maybe two. But it's different. It's not like how you would see it. It's I have a different look as a human, and then I can. How do I put it? How do I explain?
What would
I
be the
transform
reason?
into a solid being. I don't come back in as a child. Does that make sense?
Yes. What would be the reason that you would choose to do that?
Or if my people need help, if they need governing.
What people? Who are your people?
My people. The people that look to me. For aid, for guidance.
What time period is this in Earth's history? What year would it be? Right now in the desert.
We are many thousands of years before what you deem as Christ.
Would it be 5,000 years or 10,000 years before? What would it be close to? Like BC.
I'm looking. You have to forgive me. It's been many thousands of years. I'm looking at the stars. We would be about 12,000 BC your time.
Okay. So you said that you would transfer into a physical shape, and that shape would be as a human, and the reason would be to help them?
Yes. To give them guidance. It's not always seen as help.
Would you choose the same physical appearance, or would you use different ones?
Well, sometimes I like to play around.
What is an example of one you would choose? Maybe your favourite.
My favourite
Yeah.
is depicted. Is depicted as you would see as those of ancient Egyptian, of those that are tall. My favourite is one that has a woman's body that is tall, that has long black hair, almost similar to the one that I have now. But I enjoy looking in this manner because it reflects my being now. Does that make sense? Very tall. Very... They like to call me their queen. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
And then other times I like to pretend that I am one of them. And I come back as an older lady, and that's the great time. An older woman with grey hair, long grey hair, hobbled over just to see the real kindness in human life. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
I love it.
And would you stay in that form for about 2 years, or would you sometimes stay longer?
Sometimes I stay longer. Sometimes I like to be able to see what humans are really like when they are not being watched. It's very interesting.
Yeah. How fast does it take to become that form from your current form? Or one of those forms?
It takes me 3 nights.
Human days? Earth days?
3 passings of the moon. 3 days, 3 nights.
Would you go to a specific location on Earth to do that, or it doesn't really matter?
It's not really too much of an issue. As long as it's dark and I am not interrupted.
Would the ley lines or the energy location that is in the Earth play a role, or it doesn't really matter?
That doesn't really matter to me. I just like to be able to be in myself, to be able to have the privacy and have somewhere that I can relax and know that I'm not going to be disturbed. I usually choose one of the caves that's in the hills, in the dunes. But then I have some explaining to do if I come out as an older lady. As you can imagine.
Are you, in that form you're in now, are you able to pass through physical matter?
Yes. I'm able to go anywhere that I would like to.
So, for example, you could pass through the wall of the cave?
Yes.
When you do that, do you feel any different? Do you notice that the physical side of the cave, or is it just the same as not being within it?
No, sometimes it feels a little cold. It does feel a little bit colder. I feel the change in the temperature. It's not always... It doesn't always feel in a certain way. It feels it feels as though you're just passing through something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do notice it.
But you notice the temperature. You do notice the temperature. It's quite funny. This amount of disbelief that people have. That we can walk amongst people in human form. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just wouldn't accept it at all.
No. It's quite interesting.
So, in human history, when we look back at information, what's been recorded, do you or have you ever lived temporarily in one of these bodies that has been recorded in history that we might know of?
I have.
What's one example?
I have, yes. I have lived as you would know it to be, as Isis. I have lived as Cleopatra. I have lived as many forms. But however, you would not know the names of many of the others that I have lived as.
When you say lived, do you mean...
I have lived as Ramses.
Yeah.
But everyone began not to believe anymore.
with these you just mentioned, like Isis, Cleopatra, Ramses, were you there kind of temporarily? Did you come through a baby form, or was it like you described, you just materialized?
Temporarily, I decided Isis was my form. That was the one I could appear as at any given time. She was my true self in human form. And Cleopatra, I came in as a walk-in, and I decided that I was going to help her to become the better part of herself. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
We did a lot of studying.
What sort of walk-in, how would you describe that process?
Well, she was very unwell. She was very unwell. And she was lying in her bed, and she was not going to make it through the night. I knew that I had to do something to stop this. So I came in. I wrapped my arms around her, and I wrapped my wings around her, and I became as one. And the next morning, I woke up and I was her.
Did you have any communication with her to make that transition or agreement?
I asked her if she would like my help. But she had always asked me for my help. Ever since she was a young girl. She'd always asked me for my help.
Had you been around her entire life at different times?
Always. I'm always around those. I'm always around those who are in that league of people who were of that sense. Does this make sense to you? I was always around the people who needed guidance. I was always around those who were in the chosen blood. Does this make sense to you?
So when you say league, you mean chosen blood, or chosen blood is an example?
It wasn't my term. I didn't like that term, but that was what they all used. They all decided that they were all going to be, all the royalty were going to be handed down by way of blood.
Mm.
And so I decided to stay with them, with the children, with the woman who bore the children, so I could help them. And Cleopatra always asked me for my help.
What did Cleopatra see you as before you walked in? Was there a name or a figure? How would you recognize
Just as
you?
mother. Just as a mother. As a mother.
So like a mother energy? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Did she have her own mother around at the time?
No.
So these figures in history that you've mentioned, and there's a lot more, like you say, there's a number of methods or combinations or ways that you come in to be them, isn't there? It's not always the same.
Yes. Yes. It's always different.
What about with Isis?
Yes.
How did you, like you said before, was that similar to you being in the desert and you would take on the form for a couple of years, manifesting into a form? Was Isis like that?
Yes, that's how we lived for so many years. That's how we ruled for so many years. That's many, many years. that we were able to rule, because we didn't just stop. We didn't just stop ruling. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
We would go into our form, and then we would come back into a form that humans felt less frightened of. We were able to take on their form. Not entirely. We were a lot larger than they were. That's how they knew to look up to us.
When you say larger, what do you mean?
Larger in height and stature. It's a lot.
Physical appearance.
Yes. In the physical, we were a lot stronger, a lot taller. We were more. It was very hard. It's very hard to bring ourselves into a form for a small amount of time that is not terrifying and seen as the unknown. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. When you say we, why do you say we?
Well, there were others. There were many others. There were many others. We had myself. There was my husband. We had my son, or how you would classify them.
Do you mean...
There were other, as humans saw us, there were other gods. However, we were only ever guardians. We were never gods. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
There were a number of us. And all of us had different purposes.
So as that being in the desert, would you say you're a type of angel?
Yes, I would say that in the way that you see it, yes.
And when you're talking about the others before, were they types of angels as well?
Well, we like to see ourselves as guardians.
Guardians. Yeah.
Guardians. We don't. Angels are different. It's more of a, how do I put it? It's more of a human term, and more of a modern term.
Angels?
And to see people as angels. It's not something that we ever saw.
And
we were guardians. We were there to give guidance.
And it's associated with religion? Angel?
It's associated with things that are much newer than our time.
Yeah.
Much newer, and there's, yes, it's a very different term. It's something that we don't see ourselves as. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
We were there to give guidance to people, to help them to understand all the a new path, a new life. Humans have become very, very lost, very lost in themselves, and they had nothing else left. And the best thing that they could do was to have hope. We gave them hope. We gave them love. We gave them the ability to learn. And before that, they didn't have much to learn other than how to survive. And you can't just run on survival skills. You can't run on flight or fight, as you would call it now.
Mm.
You have to have hope, or you don't ascend.
Mm. What was your fascination or decision to be Isis?
I guess that it was just that's a name that the humans gave me. It was just the fact that I wanted to feel more so like myself.
Because it resembled more of who you really are?
Yes, it resembles more of who I am. Although I look at the way that I am depicted now, and it's a lot different. It is a lot different.
Not so accurate?
Not so accurate. No, not as accurate.
Can you describe the way you were before the inaccuracies came in?
It is true that I do often have a ball on my head. However, it's very much my connection. It's my connection to being able to transform at will.
Is it like a chakra?
It is. It is like how you would call a chakra.
I know there's one called...
It is a god chakra, I suppose, that you would call it now.
Above the crown, I've learnt there's one called the transpersonal point, or is it different?
Yes. This one is multicoloured.
Mm.
It's very holographic. There is a lot of different colours to this one. It is the one that joins all the chakras together.
Mm.
And this one is the one which is symbolised as being a headpiece above my head. But it was just always there.
Is that the same as the one that is in some of the pictures of Jesus?
Possibly. Possibly it is.
Mm.
I found it very interesting. I found it very, very interesting that the depiction of Jesus was very interesting. He was an amazing, amazing person. Knew how to work with the energies incredibly. However, he was directing people. He was helping. He was guiding people, the same way we all did. He was a guardian sent to guide.
Mm.
But it makes me want to weep. The restraints that have been put on the humankind for our guidances is very different. There are a lot of the guardians here that they were very, very strict. They were not all very nice.
So some guardians were possibly doing the opposite of what you were trying to achieve.
Yes. However, they were there to teach the lessons that needed to be taught.
Even the ones that were, you could say, dark?
Everything is learning. And people say that it's about being dark. It's not about it being dark. It's not about that. It's about the fact that people need to learn how to grow, and you can't learn to grow without negative.
Mm.
So everything has to be in a delicate balance. We have to have positive and we must have negative. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
If we don't have the negative, we cannot possibly learn the light. We cannot possibly learn the positive.
Mm. So just going back to you mentioned you had that Isis, you mentioned you had that ball above your head. What else would you describe about yourself that they've got wrong and what is right?
My skin. I'm quite often depicted very pale. I was not very pale at all. It's very hot. It's very hot in the deserts. And they also depicted a lot of the deserts. We have the sands. We have the sands of time. I don't understand.
Mm.
We worked with the sands of time. That's why we had sand. We had luscious rivers and anyways.
So you're trying to say that you didn't spend much time in the desert, but the sand represented the sands of time.
The sands represent the sands of time.
Yeah.
We have there's so much sand. We had it all. We had all the sands of time. It was amazing. It was truly something that people, modern souls, cannot understand. But we were there to guide. We were there to help. And it's that same feeling of that depiction of Jesus that you talked about before.
Mm.
It's very interesting as to how we are all depicted. At no point was Jesus ever pale.
Yeah.
We were never pale people. We had a lot of sun.
So what colour is your skin then?
My skin is very dark and glistening.
Would you say a dark brown, or would you say it was more black?
We have it is not a colour I can express, other than it would be a hybrid between having very dark skin of very dark brown with gold throughout it. Our skin glitters gold, as yours glitters sweat. Ours glitters gold.
It makes me think of maybe some of the depictions of ancient Egypt, kind of a goldy dark brown colour in the skin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are probably the truest form. However, there are a lot. It does surprise me.
Yeah. So
It's
why?
humorous.
Yeah. Why does Shannon feel such a close connection to Isis?
Well, because I was one of her lives. Because I am part of her. Although not completely. But I come in and I help. And I help her to see her path and her life.
So just going back to, you had all these different lives you mentioned, and some of these famous, could say, personalities that we know about.
Yes.
Did you ever have simultaneous lives, or was it only one at a time on Earth?
It was usually that I had, at the time, I would take singular lives. Then, as there became less and less of the need for guidance, I was able to... it's not that I have simultaneous lives as such. I can come in and I can help guide one soul or another where I am called. So I have the ability to have more. It works differently here. It works differently. Does this make sense? So we can where you see time as and different people, I have the ability to be able to go to one soul and help them through a life and give them my soul attention, and then work through another at the same time.
At the same time. How many could you do at once if you were working with humans in that way?
If I was working with humans in that way, however many I choose.
Could be hundreds?
It could be hundreds. In one simple lifetime length, if that makes sense, so one soul's length.
Average length, yeah.
I would probably try and help. It's usually There are a couple of thousand chosen souls in one soul's length.
Yeah. Are you like a spirit guide, or are you different when you're helping humans in that way?
When I'm helping humans in that way, I'm what we call no, I cannot describe that. Sorry, I'm not allowed to describe that.
You haven't been a poet?
It's very hard for the human mind to comprehend. It's not a walk-in, however, it's an entity that is there with you. It is one where we help with you, with the higher self, so we are part of that soul, but we are not. It's like a combination.
So, for example, there's an author called Susie Hansen. She wrote the book The Dual Soul Connection. She has had lots of ET contact experiences and abductions, and through this she remembered her experiences through a combination of regression and other methods, and she spoke that she learned she had a dual soul. There was a grey soul that was part of her human soul. So when you just with that knowledge and describing what you said, what's the differences?
A dual soul it does seem to work for your understanding, yes.
So, for example, span of one human, one lifetime, you said thousands. Would you be like a dual soul for those thousands, or only some of those?
Only some.
So you wouldn't always do that? Yeah.
No, sometimes I come in more as a guide. As a guide.
Yeah.
Rather than... It's something that I'm drawn to certain souls, and we talk about this. I frequently get told off because I am frequently going down and visiting different souls. However,
when you shouldn't be?
Not that I shouldn't be, but rather that they feel that I should have been finished with all my learning. However, I would like to be able to continue to help people.
Is that because of curiosity? Or?
It's because I unconditionally love, and in that I can't not be of guidance.
So, for example, you mentioned, so you do this for your learning. That's the original reason.
Yes, it's for me to be able to guide, to help humans with their learning, and in which case I learn too.
Just go more into that. So, what do you mean by learning?
So, with learning, I help people to, like I said before, I have guidance. I'm able to have guidance with people, and I'm able to guide them into certain things. But many, many thousands of years ago, they would listen to my every word.
Yeah.
But that was not what we wanted. We didn't want them to listen to our every word. We didn't want the control. We wanted to inspire. We wanted to inspire people. They had to learn their own lessons and their own pathways. And as they learned, and as I guided them, I learned what humans could and could not do, and unfortunately there were some unfortunate times there too, where you give humans an abundance, and you learn that then they become selfish and greedy.
The ego takes over.
The ego takes over. It's very, very delicate balance, and humans don't quite understand, and they never really did quite understand. It's a lot of learning. Everything must be learnt, and it's one of those things where we didn't understand either. We wanted to give the world, and we couldn't. We could only give so much, and then we had to take too.
Mm.
It's a balance, and it's the same with everything. We all have to learn. We all have to guide. That is what life is about. It's about learning.
So this learning you speak of, would that also be a way of describing your spiritual development?
Yes, in a way. In a
As in
sense.
your greater being or consciousness or collective, for its growth, it doesn't have to, but it comes down here to learn.
Yes, we come here to learn. We come here to greater our being, to greater our understanding. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Everything, every little conscious decision, subconscious decision, every movement, every decision that you make, standing somewhere and choosing to go left, is a completely different decision as choosing to go right. So at one point you have to go back and choose to go right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to learn every aspect of what you could have done, who you could have been, what life is in different ways, what life means to different people, what family means to different people, what career means to different people, what life's purpose means to different people.
So how would you describe yourself as the greater part of you? Are you a collective? So I mean, you're...
Yes. Sorry.
You're not... Obviously, at the top of everything is source, where everything came from.
Yes.
So not that level, but below that, you're more of an individual who's going out and, being the guardian, helping thousands of souls here, and being major personalities. So that part that makes up all of that. What is that? How would you describe that?
I would definitely describe it as yes, I am a collective of different lives, but we are all working together. We all work together to be able to understand each other, to be able to learn more, and we enjoy being able to come back. We enjoy being able to see new motions and new people and new life. Although I have to say this one isn't actually the nicest era. But we could say that about many different eras.
Mm.
But the saddest point about this one is the lack of belief, the lack of true belief in oneself. That would be the saddest point. But yes, there is definitely source. There is source above us. And we have... There are many of us.
So when you say there's many of you, are there
Yes.
many others that do the same thing as you, but
Yes.
as individuals?
Yes.
Yes.
So we come down and we see... We work with different masters. We work with different masters, and we work with different souls. And different souls have different life purposes. And we work together to see how we can better life on Earth. What souls we choose to work with, so we can better life on Earth, so that humans can still learn and still understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They still understand a sense of self. And they learn the balance. And what we are trying to achieve is that we want to be able to allow more humans more souls to be able to ascend to higher planes. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
There's too many that are caught in too much fear. There's too many. When, for example, when we worked together, and we would come, and we would, and I would take such a form, such as Isis. We had to learn how to not rule in fear, how to not guide in fear.
As in the actions and things you did and spoke, you had to make sure it wasn't causing fear?
That there was balance, yes. Oh. I fear I might be saying too much for people to understand and comprehend. Does this?
So, for example, you never wanted to cause fear.
No.
But you had to learn how not to.
Yes. Yes. So it's very confusing, isn't it?
Because you're not perfect, right?
No one is perfect. No one is perfect. Perfection is not something that can be reached. Perfection is the ego. Yeah. Perfection is ego sense. It is not ours.
So, for example, if you'd come into that situation 12,000 years ago and you'd already had those 12,000 years on Earth doing lots of different things, helping out selves, you would have done things differently, perhaps?
No, I would not have done things differently. Because if I had have done things differently, time would be different.
The future back then would have been different.
Yes. We cannot go back. We cannot regret. Why regret when we can learn? I have no regrets. I only learned and gained a greater understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I gained a greater understanding of the humankind and what I was able to learn what unconditional love really was.
Okay. Is Shannon one of your lives? You know how we have... it's always hard to describe those things. But, so the average human here has past lives and they have their higher self. And maybe even an oversoul, and that higher self comes back and has more past lives. Is that similar with your situation with Shannon, or is it different?
So, with Shannon, she was one of my chosen souls. One of the souls that I chose, only simply because I had a very strong connection with her, where I had a very strong connection with Cleopatra herself. In which sense I firmly believe, I firmly see that one of Shannon's past lives was with Cleopatra herself, which is why she chops and changes through different things.
Do you mean she was in another body in the time of Cleopatra and interacted with her?
No, I mean one of her past lives.
So Cleopatra was Shannon?
Yes. However, we were able to... I walked into Cleopatra's life, as I have mentioned before, and I was able to work with her, but her soul, Cleopatra's original soul, is one of the past lives that resides in with this one.
Shannon. When you did that, was it like a dual soul situation from there on, and as a walk-in, or did Shannon, her soul go?
No. So okay. So with Shannon, it's slightly different. It's not like it was a walk-in where it was with Cleopatra. I work in with Shannon in a sense that it's like the dual soul, whereas with Cleopatra, I took over. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a different type of connection, but there's a reason that Shannon has been very connected to learning everything off the top of her head, can know anything about beauty, I suppose that we call it now, and understanding that pathway in life, and also wants to learn everything, languages, all sorts, because that was the guidance in which I was able to give Cleopatra herself.
Yeah. So, just to understand your connection to Shannon more, so she's in this life, she's one of the chosen. You're aware that she was there as Cleopatra. So you've worked with her quite a few times?
Yes, in many different lifetimes.
Is that normal for you to work with? I can't say the same soul, but is it normal for you to do this with other beings?
Normal to do this? Be talking to yourself, or or normal to be coming back in?
Having a chosen soul that you have a dual soul connection with.
Yes, normal to have a chosen soul. Yes, that's
So
very normal.
You've got a lot.
I have a few, yes. A few in the amount of souls that there are. I have a few.
Yes, and I guess that would be more than billion. I don't know.
It's a few.
As in the amount of souls.
It's a few tens of thousands.
Yeah.
So it's a few.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so still trying to figure out Shannon's connection to you. So, would you describe yourself as having a higher self above you, or are you the higher self?
No, I would describe myself as people see it as being an entity. Does this make sense?
Yeah, a single entity.
It's very difficult to describe. So people see it as an entity, and it's almost as though what happens at that time, the entity comes in and almost combines with the soul that is there. Does this make sense? So,
yes,
but it's not like a walk-in. It's not like a higher self. It is simply that you have an entity with you. There have been times where people talk about things such as possession and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of us know that possession is usually a walk-in spirit. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And when it comes down to something like this, there's no term I can explain it as in your words. It comes down to an amalgamation of the soul and myself.
Shannon's soul and yourself.
Yes.
Just while we're on that subject, does this happen with...
Excuse the flies.
Entities... does this happen with entities that are not focused on the positive?
No. So this happens simply because we have chosen to come in and help and guide, and there are certain souls that have a different purpose. And so what happens is that when that person isn't quite at that purpose, we feel the need to come in and guide them. Yes. So as you would say as a spirit guide, well, no. Shannon still has her own spirit guide. She still has her own guardian. She still has her soul, and she's very present in her life. However, there are a lot of information that I personally give her.
Yes.
And I'm very much her, how you would call it, one of her guides. However, our souls are collectively together within her ego.
Yes. So before you mentioned the word possession, so I mean that sometimes, in a negative sense, someone might be possessed, and and other people think they need to get rid of that part of them, that possession that comes in because it's a negative experience. Does that possession happen a similar way to what you just described, but in a negative sense, of course?
Yes. So that would be in a negative sense. That would be where there's a walk-in. That is not so there is someone who's trying to be a walk-in, who's trying to do what the higher astral can. However, they do not possess that ability, and because if someone's soul it's not their time. It's not their time to leave.
Yeah.
Do
they get
walk-ins walk-ins only happen when there's time.
Yeah.
And we walk through the life with that person's soul there. So they're kind of nowadays you would be. It's like you're playing a game. So as a walk-in, you're doing the walking around for them.
Yeah.
You're doing everything for them. However, they're still there as a bystander.
Are they always still there, or do sometimes...
Most of the time.
So, for example, if a person wants to commit suicide and they don't want to be here anymore, is there ever a situation where a walk-in comes in and they can go off back to where they came from?
Usually, that is a very difficult one to answer. I will do my best. So if someone is to commit suicide, or wants to commit suicide, that soul has a lot of healing that needs to be done. And they don't necessarily stay because they need to go to the resting place. They need to go to a place of healing. Does this make sense?
Yes, perfect.
So they kind of need to go... they need to go to somewhere that will look after them. But what they will do is that they will watch the rest of their life on playback if there has been a walk-in. If someone has chosen to be a walk-in after that, they will allow them to watch what happened with their life, although that soul has got a lot of learning left to do. They have... It is the saddest thing. It is the saddest thing.
Mm.
They have got a lot of learning left to do.
So they will need to come back and go over the things they missed,
yes,
and also
yes.
go over what ended the
caused
them to get to that stage.
And when it is a walk-in at that phase, it's not normally there's not normally a negative response to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's normally a positive, so that soul, once they come out of the place of rest, they are able to learn what their life should have been.
Yeah.
But there's not normally negative. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
But when there is a negative possession,
okay, yeah.
That is more so when someone is overtaking. So they're trying to go in there without permission.
Yeah.
And usually you find that those people have been very fear-based.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you tend to find that there are a lot of people who have been fear-based and live their life with fear.
Yeah.
And they're in a very dark place themselves, and they invite negativity in, and very low astral in. And unfortunately that undoes the balance, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But yes.
Okay.
A lot of possessions as such are usually derived from people who are within religion.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
They tend to see it as something that shouldn't be seen.
So back to Shannon, does she have a higher self?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she does.
And it's separate to yours?
Yes, she's met her higher self
Yes.
on many occasions.
But because you've had a lot of involvement in her
We get along
past,
like a house on fire,
yeah,
as she would say.
and that's why you're here today.
Yes.
House on fire. Okay. Okay, so
As you can see, there's quite a bit of energy.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. What can I call you?
Whatever you feel you would like to call me. I have no specific name that you would be able to pronounce. Therefore, if Isis feels the best way, then you can call me Isis. You can call me the other lady. That's what she seems to call me.
To keep you separate from the Earth individuals. I liked earlier, one of the first things I said was, what was your role? And you mentioned like a carer.
Yes.
Maybe something around the lines of that, but I'm sure you're having are you having experiences on other planets as well?
Am I or have I?
Both.
Both. More so in different planes. More so different planes. I have had experiences on other planets, and I do continue to, but this time there's a lot of balance that needs to be restored in Earth, so I seem to be more so focused on here.
Have you had? Would Earth be the place you've had the most focus on in the universe, in the physical universe?
Yes, yes. I prefer to be around the humankind.
Can you give an example of another place in the universe where you'd say maybe the second amount of focus?
Yes, I can. I do love the Venetians. That's a beautiful place. It's very filled with love, and it's what Earth should be.
What does their solar system look like?
It's very similar. It's very similar to Earth's, actually. The difference is that it is an inverted Earth. It is an internal Earth. It's not much to look at.
So you'd say like a hollow Earth?
Yes. And where you have Earth, it's very difficult to explain. There's not, there are not the words here, it's just the knowing.
Does the planet itself have a gravity that's similar to Earth?
No.
Does it have an atmosphere that's similar?
It does, but it's different. It's inverted. So everything is inverted, and everything comes from the internal sun. So everything comes from the internal sun.
Inside the planet?
Inside the planet. And this internal sun is the be-all, and is all the love, and is all the energy, and gives everything to every being in the planet.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So everything is living. There's no money. There's no greed. Everything runs on love. It's one of my favorites.
And it's the Venetians, is it?
Yes.
Where does that name come from?
It's I cannot explain it. If I explain it, I fear I will get told off. There will be too much that that then humans may know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Did they ever come out onto this outside of the planet?
They do. They quite often do. They quite often go back.
Because they prefer.
Because they prefer it. It's a very. It's very muchly a place of happiness. It's. I think that in your world, you have. I have to remember. Sorry. You have. It's a.
You're comparing it with something in our.
Yes. There's. It's. There's a. I just remember the blue being.
Blue beings.
Yes.
On Earth. That will all visit Earth.
No, I'm trying to think of something that would be very similar to assimilate it to you.
Bacterians.
They were very much. Everything talks to each other. Everything on that planet talks to each other. Everything is all one. Everything is all in sync.
So the Venetians themselves are kind of like one.
Yes, the
one
trees, the
collective.
flowers, the fae, the sprites, everything works together.
So sort of like an ant colony, but more sophisticated.
Yes, it is very much an earth feeling, but it is very much more. It's what Earth should have been, should be.
Yeah. What do they look like?
All different. They're all different colours. They're all different. They have very pointed ears, very pointed noses. Normally they have about 3 nostrils, and very cat-like, I suppose, cat-like eyes. They're just lovely people.
Are their bodies also cat-like?
No, their bodies are very human-like. They're very human-like. But they are elongated, and they have a knowing.
As in the skull, is that elongated, or the entire body?
The entire body. They're much taller.
Are they skinnier?
They're all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
It's very hard to describe. They're all different shapes and sizes, and they are all connected. They talk through their fingertips. So
in the same way as we do, but instead of the mouth, or?
yes, but they talk with one another by touch. Everything is by touch.
Can they still communicate without touching?
Yes, they can. They can still talk.
How would you compare or describe that to that type of communication?
The communication is very much what you would call telekinetic.
Yeah. And telepathic as well? Different?
I would prefer to call it telekinetic.
Yeah, okay.
Because telepathic they don't read each other's minds. That's an invasion of privacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't work quite like that. Yes. but everything talks to you. Every creature, every flower, everything. It's beautiful.
If they were to give a message to the humans, what would that message be just now?
Surround yourself with unconditional love.
Okay.
Stop being greedy. Would definitely be one. But it would definitely be for everything to be in balance. To work on yourself, to learn, and to not be scared. Life is an abundant... life is abundance. It's only these rules and things that are put in place from people that we don't even know. you need to live life, and be true to yourself and be true to your heart and live with unconditional love for every being. Every being. Does that make sense?
Every form of life.
Every form of life.
But then some people don't realise what is life.
So,
Or consciousness.
That's their own lesson that they need to learn.
Yeah, that's right.
There is nothing I can really say to that. There are certain things that we cannot tell you. That's why I've had to be careful in choosing how I explain things.
Yeah, that happens.
Because most people become very overwhelmed with this information.
Yeah.
And it can... we've seen it in past cases. It drives people to be a little bit crazy.
Does it create fear?
As such, and it
say the
creates
wrong
fear.
thing? Yeah.
It creates fear because people humankind don't like to think of other beings.
It can be scary. Yeah.
Before many moons ago, before modern times. The time that is thought of as creating mythology, legends. People then were more awake than they are now.
Yeah.
They had more of a sense of reality, of different beings, and they would not have been as scared.
Or perhaps what's beyond this reality.
Yes, they would not have been as scared.
Yeah.
Had beings come to this planet.
Yeah.
They would not have been as scared. They would have been, obviously they would have been, but not as terrified as what they would now. It's very filled with fear of the unknown and divine intercept into this world now.
Yeah. So when you think about all the experiences you've had, so that may be in other realms, like you said, Earth or this other planet or some other planets in this universe, I'm sure you've done a lot in the other realms as well. What would your role title be? So you said the carer earlier. Would you still be known as the carer and the guardian, perhaps, or
carer,
something
guardian, a mother? Yes, just. I'm not necessarily known as much else. I don't like to give in to my that's more of an ego thing, to be known as something.
But is there something you can't say that you're known as? Because it might sound like it's ego, or it may cause confusion or issues or fear.
I don't see myself as anything else. I simply see myself as a guardian and a carer and a mother.
Okay.
And although that may seem a bit strange, that's I don't see myself as anything else.
Okay, that's fine.
And I cannot explain that.
Yeah.
It's more of a feeling.
Why do you have wings?
So I can fly.
So when you came
because I enjoy flying.
You were in the desert, you had those wings.
Yes.
But you don't need wings to fly when you're in that form, right?
No, but I enjoy it.
So it's like a personal preference.
It is a personal preference. It's my accessories. They are what I want.
When you think back on your memories and experiences before you were in the desert there with the wings, you must have used wings at some point. Is there a specific life or period of time where you had wings that stands out as something really nice, and maybe that was why you like having wings?
No, I remember the first time I ever saw a bird, and I thought, oh, I would love to have wings.
Yeah.
And therefore I decided I would have wings. It sounds a bit strange, but it's a different type of flying.
So I know that some angelic, like there's a soul group called the Angelic Soul Group, and they also have wings, and they've got things going on there where, you know, you get to a certain point and you're awarded the wings because it shows you've progressed and so on. It's got nothing to do with that?
No, so collectively as other, I have an ability to be able to transform. I had an ability to be able to transform. And therefore I was able to transform my body how I would like. It was never a rank. It was my own personal ability to manipulate energy.
The ability to transform, is that sort of like a rank?
That is a rank. Yes, that I cannot explain.
Why?
Because that is a bit beyond this consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. So would it be like, you know, you've done a lot of development, you've reached a high vibrational level and you've just gained that ability sort of thing?
Yes, it was an ability that was gifted to myself. The further up that we developed.
So it was a gift?
It was a gift.
From someone else?
I can't tell you the answer to that. I'm sure you could read between the lines, but I can't give you the answer to that.
Is this common or not so common?
It's not so common. It's more so common in more older souls, like myself. There are many beings in what you would call mythology that have the ability to transform.
Yeah.
And we all get to a degree of being able to learn and going through our own ranks to be able to ascend to that level, if that makes sense. We have certain challenges that we have to face to be able to do that.
I've just got an interesting question that comes to mind. When you're giving souls or beings guidance, whether it's like a psychic message or a channeling or however you do it, do you ever have to like bend the truth or say something that's not completely accurate to get your point across and to do that for the reasons of making sure they go in a certain direction? Do you ever do that?
For some people, I have been known to not bend the truth, but to bend their reality. Take their glasses off, as such. Allow them to see. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So where they would miss something in one point of their life, I would take the glasses off then and say, look harder. You know, I'm very honest and I'm very upfront, and at no way do I bend the truth, but bending their reality. Making them notice synchronicities, giving signs. I have the ability that higher self sometimes may struggle with, where I can give physical signs.
Yeah.
And I make them notice them.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
It's more so an ability to be able to acknowledge that those synchronicities are there.
Would other beings at your level bend the truth a bit, or do that whole thing a bit differently, like I described?
I can only speak for myself.
Do you have that knowledge though?
I do have that knowledge, but I can only speak for myself.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. So why, at the start today, why did you choose the desert when you came in?
Because it was a slight fight to decide as to who was going to where we were going to be able to go to.
Yeah.
I wanted to have an ability. I don't normally do this. I don't normally come through in these sorts of sessions, I suppose that you would
Yes.
call them.
Yes.
But I decided I wanted to. So where Shannon's higher self, as you call it, was going to go somewhere else, it was a slight bit of confusion, which would explain why we decided to do it the way that we did.
Do you know where higher self was going to take her?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us?
I do. She was going to take her through to Cleopatra.
Okay.
However, I decided that I wanted to take that
Jump
one,
in, pop
to
in.
jump that one over, because there are certain things about Cleopatra that Shannon will have, will learn, but that the world need not know right now. There are certain things that are still to be kept hidden.
And if you hadn't come in, that information may have come out?
It may have come out, because I know how much of a chatterbox Cleo is.
And you might know I might ask a few interesting questions.
Yes, and I know that there would be certain things that would come into play. Maybe later down the track. But yes, there are certain things that cannot be known just yet.
Okay, that's interesting. Did her higher self say anything to you when you did that?
Not really. Just gave me a knowing of almost like how you would see a teenager roll their eyes and slam the door. That's more so what happened.
Slam the door in what sense?
So it was more so a knowing, like a not really saying anything as such, if that makes sense. It was more so a knowing of that was the feeling I was getting of.
So it agreed with what you wanted to do.
Yes,
but at the
agreed,
same time,
but
it wasn't 100%
but was
approving or happy. Or, it's not the right
no,
word.
we work together, so everything is approved.
Yeah.
But more so that it was she was on a tangent of doing her own thing,
So
and
she
not
kinda
wanting
had
me to
things-
intervene.
Yeah, she had things planned out.
Yes.
Is she the right word, or for her higher self, or not?
In this, the way that I see her is very, very feminine, very masculine at times, but at the moment very feminine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Hasn't always been very feminine, and throughout life can change. She is a very interesting higher self, but yes.
So coming through today, is there something, a single thing that is important to get out there in terms of information?
In terms of information,
Or is it a combination?
it's a combination. It's more so making sure that I think that everyone is in complete agreement that sorry, I'm finding the right words.
Mm.
I feel like everyone is in complete agreement that that there needs to be less fear. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. There needs to be more positivity and more unconditional love for oneself with every person. There's so much hatred and so much doubt. It needs not be there.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. You would be surprised looking at the world through my eyes, looking at souls and how many are aligning. And if people only just believed in themselves, rather than relying on another, rather than wanting to rely on what man has said.
Yeah.
If they relied on themselves, they would find the truth.
So relied on what another has said. They've got to look inside themselves.
Yes. Everything is within yourself. Your own truth is within yourself. You just have to align yourself to it. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and
it's
because we.
It's a growth period. It's a growth period, and there's ascensions happening everywhere. Just need to find the ability to align.
And it's an individual experience, isn't it?
Yes.
And we create our own reality.
It is.
So we have to look inside to create that.
Yes. And unfortunately, there will be some people who are left behind.
Yeah.
But they are not ready, and it is not their time.
If you could just do something, connect into me, do I have a dual soul connection?
If I was to... You already know the answer to that. I feel as though if I'm to say that, I'm to say too much. If I'm to talk to you about that, I'm to talk to you about too much.
Yeah.
It is not my guidance in which you need. But you need to listen to that additional voice sometimes. Maybe that will give you a bit of an insight.
Yeah.
Without me saying too much.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to come back in the future sometime and talk to us again?
You mean physically?
Okay, sure.
One day I will be back. One day I will be back.
Like we're doing now.
Yes.
Maybe in another session.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I would, as long as I'm not told off.
By those above or beside you, or by someone back here?
There's many different people that could tell me off, I'm sure. But, they all know that I, in saying what I have said to you, it is only with unconditional love that I've come through. So.
Okay. Okay, so it's time for us to move Shannon on to another experience. What's your recommendation, or would you just like me to go through the process?
No, I don't have a recommendation really. She's had some pretty interesting lives, I can tell you that. So no, I don't really have any recommendations. I think that I think her higher self has got this one. I feel like, yep. She's
still waiting there.
Yeah, she's waiting there.
Patient.
Very patiently.
Energetic fingers.
Yeah. Tapping out at me. Yes. Yes, tapping her fingers. Yes, I do want you to make sure that Shannon understands that what they have categorized to her as her neurological disorder, not fair about that. A lot of that is having two souls combined into the one. A lot of the issues with that. It's harnessing a big energy. It's understanding that she has got a large energy within her. And that can sometimes cause the mortal humankind, it can cause the body a lot of distress. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so that's for both FND and fibro?
Yes. So
it's your fault?
It's my fault. I'm sure she won't mind. However, it is to do with the simple fact that she has got much rather larger energy within her, which is why doctors cannot seem to find what is wrong with her.
Did she agree for this?
Yes, this was definitely something that she agreed to, and we talked about it before she came.
Why did she agree?
she agreed to it because it was. We agreed to come together should she have been not quite at the right place at the right time, and needing redirection and needing the insights that to the questions that she asks. She asks some very interesting questions, and her knowledge needs to be meteorized. She has a lot of knowledge, things that she knows without knowing, which she can blame me for. And she has a very, very full-on sense of justice, and that she can also blame myself for, but also her higher self. It's a want to be able to save those souls around her, and not only around her, but those integrated in the complete grid pattern and the tapestry that is life. Does that make sense?
Yes. So she planned this before coming into this life, that
Yes.
this could be an option.
Yes. Yes.
But it wasn't 100% going to happen?
Not 100%. She was supposed... Free will came into play. And she was very connected for a very long time. Whereby I could give guidance from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm saying too much. But I could give guidance from the other side. And then she kind of lost herself a little bit.
Okay, so with these two physical conditions that they've labelled and told her she has, what can she do to either get rid of them or lessen their impact on her?
She just has to learn to enjoy them and understand them, and learn from them. See what they're teaching her, because there are certain things that she will learn that will expand the understanding of what the human body can go through.
So at this point in time, they're not meant to be fully healed?
Not quite yet. They will be.
And is that because she does need to learn about living with them?
Yes.
Okay. How long does she need to have these conditions for?
Well, that depends on her karma that she's incurred in this lifetime too. We're trying to speed up a process here.
I think the other important thing is that they're limiting her options and choices for
a reason. For a reason.
For work, but yeah, for a reason.
There's a reason.
So today she's not meant to have all the answers, is that right?
Yes, that is right.
So she needs to integrate today's session and...
yes,
like
and she's going to end up, more than likely, she's going to end up having a conversation with me personally. So there will be information that is given to her then too.
So in other words, it's all going to be okay.
It will be. She's got some lessons to learn.
But yeah, she's got some work to do.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that she's not wheelchair bound yet, which most people would have been, which she knows already.
Okay. Okay, so thanks for coming in and talking to us today.
I was going to say I have to go because I'm being told that I'm not allowed to be here anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm being told that it's not my time anymore. I've had my time.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks, and I'll say goodbye to you.
It was lovely to talk to you.
You too.